Hello, this is Paul the Vorpal Knight coming back to you once again with another video on F1 Manager 22. This time I am coming to you after we ended the first season. I've been through the entire season, did all the races, and here we are on December 31st, 2022. And so what I want to do is to go through what happened during the year, how I did versus my goals and objectives, take a look at what I want to do for the second season, and show you how the interface between seasons works. So the things that are going to happen between season 1 and season 2 that we need to pay attention to. For my first season, you can see the standings. We finished 5th, which is actually what the board of directors required of us, so I was happy with that. Maybe I was a little less happy in that at mid-year we were in 4th place, and we had gotten to a point where we were fairly solidly in 4th place by about 30 points. But after the mid-year, we started to fade. Alpine was behind us in 5th, and they started gaining on us. They caught up to us. We had a bit of a resurgence, and then we just pancaked. So they ended up in 4th. We ended up in 5th. Alfa Romeo was far enough back where they were never a serious threat to take us from behind. So we were confident at all times during the year that we were going to make the board of directors' goal of 5th place. On the driver's side, we had Lando Norris come in at 9th place, which is okay, with 97 points, okay, and Daniel Ricciardo at 36 points. That was enough support to get us to 5th place. My view with Daniel was that as long as we were going to meet the goal set forth by the board of directors, I didn't need to take any emergency action to get in another driver in his place in this season. And I was happy that I did not have to do that. Daniel performed well enough so that we were able to get our 5th place finish without me resorting to bringing in any other drivers to take over for him. In terms of finance, this is the month-by-month blow. We started the season with $25 million in the bank. You see that I spent that down pretty quickly. And after some more spending and consolidation, I decided to let it start tracking upwards, which I did, but at the same time continue to spend on things that were needed. So we ended up with $45 million, and my goal was to end up with 40, so that's certainly fine. Ending up with $45 million gives us financial flexibility for this off-season as well as leading into the next season itself. There is a cost cap now in Formula One. It's only been there a couple years. It's about $140 million, okay? And at the end of the year, we spent $79 million, had over $60 million left under the cap limit. This is not a salary cap. This is anything that is spent to increase the performance of the car. So yes, there's staff, but there's car part research, there's various purchases, they call them emergency purchases. Whenever you run out of your powertrain allocation and have to buy a new motor or something, that's considered an emergency purchase, and it also imposes a grid penalty on you. And if you follow real Formula One, you see that does come up. It's hard for the teams to live within their initial allotment of engines and electronic equipment and gearboxes and such, and frequently they do have to get additional parts, and that puts them at a disadvantage on the grid. It's a 10-place penalty on the race where you use those new parts, so it is certainly something you need to pay attention to. And of course facilities, so there's a lot of things that roll into this as far as having to come under the cap. As I mentioned, we were able to satisfy our board of directors. They gave us a strong mid-year and end-year review. And in both instances, they gave us a $1.5 million bonus that totaled, of course, $3 million extra that we were not expecting to get from them. A good thing. For the race performance, we had gotten up where they were happy with our race performance. But as I said, we trailed off at the end, and you see it here. Here's like the last 10 races. We were in pretty good shape going into Zandvoort. Then we had a bad race at Monza, but then we hit our peak at Marina Bay, which is Singapore, where Lando Norris finished 2nd and darn near finished 1st. And he did have good support from Daniel Ricciardo, who finished something like 5th. So it was a great race for us, and we thought we had turned the corner. But even though the board was delighted with our performances, Suzuka and Austin, we started losing points to Alpine at that point. And then by the time we got to Mexico City, we were essentially tied, and we just tanked after that. We did not see a single point come our way for the rest of the season. But fortunately, the sixth place team was not close enough to catch us. For our objectives, we met our fifth place objective, so they say it's completed. We're happy. And we never went into debt. We were able to always have positive cash on hand. Here's our goal, and it was completed successfully. Constructors Championship long-term goal remains to win a championship by the end of our fifth season. So we've had our first season. We got 4 more seasons to do it, according to our board. Next, facilities. One of my goals was to increase the performance of the car. And let's skip over to the cars for a second, that'd be better. Look at the car analysis, and you can see this is our car, the McLaren cars. This is the grid average, and where this is lit up white, that means that side has the advantage. Well, guess what? Every single criteria that's used to measure a car says that we're not up to even the average of the grid. So this is what we're dealing with. And this is why I am not calling this a driver problem per se. I could have anybody, and they're not going to perform to their potential with this car. So in order for us to do significantly better on the grid, we have to have a better car. So instead of changing around the drivers left, right, and center, at this point, I'm focusing on getting the car built that can actually be competitive. And what I did to implement that strategy was, if you look here, this is the headquarters, facilities management, car development facilities. The factory I didn't touch, I just did maintenance on it, paid for maintenance to keep it going good, and I did not upgrade it. And I don't think there's any need to. I had no problem creating the parts that we knew how to create. The manufacturing went okay. But I upgraded everything from the design center all the way down to the car part test center by 1 level. So they were all started the season at level 2, and they end the season all at level 3. The design center needed to be improved, partly because I needed the capacity to do 3 concurrent research projects. When I started the season, I could only do 2, and that was a real problem. So with 3, I'm in decent shape to go ahead and do the work we need to do. We do have 10 engineers. If I go to level 4, I'll have 15. Engineering staff are what actually do the work. The more engineers you assign to a project, the faster it gets done. The wind tunnel is something that's going to help us increase the effectiveness of our research, as is the computer simulation. And remember, the higher up in the standings we go, the less of this we're going to get. So if you look at the rules and regulations, oh boy, you look at the sporting rules, you look at the CFD testing limits, this is the computer simulation time you get. The farther up you are on the list, so if you're first place you get 4 hours or whatever this stands for, and in 10th place you get 7. So you get almost twice as much resource if you finish 10 than if you finish 4th. And the same thing is true with the wind tunnel. No difference. So if you look at the wind tunnel time, this is out of our regulations, so you can see you get 56 hours in first place and 92 hours in 10th, and in between is all in between. And the only thing you can do about that, aside from not finishing high in the standings, which is not a good strategy, is to go to your facilities and improve them. Because even though you may have less wind tunnel time, increasing the quality here in your headquarters will increase the efficiency of the time you have. And so you can compensate for it by basically spending a bunch of money and increasing the wind tunnel and computer simulation efficiency. And here you can see where it goes. So going from, say, level 3 to level 4 increases the efficiency by, something close, let's say 40%, just eyeballing it. 23, yes, something like that. It's a significant boost going for up 1 level, so it will help you combat the loss of time with an increase of efficiency if you spend the money, which is what we're going to continue to do with race management car development facilities. In parallel with that, in the coming year, I want to spend money on Race Simulation and Team Hub. I did some. Both of them were improved. I think Race Simulator, we started at 3. We went up 1 level there. And the Team Hub, I think we went up 2 levels. And the reason for that, first off, at least the Team Hub was not that expensive. So that always helps. But you can see that it increases the weekly experience gain of the driver. The drivers actually learn faster if you have a better Team Hub, and they learn faster if you have a better race simulator. So see, going from level 4 to level 5 gets you up from an 80% bonus to a 100% bonus. Always a good thing. So I want to spend some money on this stuff as well as the cars this time. Reason being is that last time I had a reserve driver who was 29 years old and he wasn't really learning that much. And we have Daniel Ricciardo who was 33 and he's not learning all that much. Lando Norris is learning, so he's got a fairly decent learning curve still, but 2 of our 3 drivers didn't. So I prioritized the car over the drivers last season. I'm going to be shifting a little bit towards the drivers in the coming season. For staff, these are the non-driver staff. I already implemented one goal in that I hired off Enrico Cardile from Ferrari. Stole him away from Ferrari, put him to work for us as technical chief. Good move. Our old guy had a composite rating of 75, I believe. This guy's an 82. He's a much better guy. Much better guy. So the technical chief and the head of aerodynamics give bonuses to all research and development. And depending on their skills, some things are better at than others. But in general, a guy who's an 82 is going to be doing a very good job for you in pretty much anything. Here you see his stats. So he's a 79 in chassis, 81 in front wing, rear wing, so on and so on. He's solid in everything. Remember, the prior guy that I had, his average was 75. That's how you get a composite rating. You just average all the numbers out. This guy's an 82. Much better. Much better. So I'm going to have to do something similar with the head of aerodynamics. I'm going to aim for a guy somewhere in the 80s, probably low 80s. We'll see what we can do. And I might also get a new race engineer for Lando, which would be this guy. I renewed his contract, gave him a short-term renewal last time. I think I might say adios to race engineer Jason Pryor and try to bring in another guy. He's 51. Oh, he's too old. We got to bring in a young guy who can do stuff for Lando. All right. And on drivers, as I said, I decided to keep Daniel Ricciardo, which is really what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to get rid of him in his second contract because the price of doing that would have been pretty high. If you look at his contract, even now, the cost to break this contract is over $5 million. That's just money out the door because I broke the contract with a full year remaining. As we get into the year, though, this number should go down. I'll be continuing to pay his $10 million salary race by race and bonuses that he gets. And he gets them beginning with 8th place. That just bugs me. He gets 8th place and I'm out $1 million. Holy smokes. But I think that as we get towards the middle of the year, the penalty for making a change is going to be relatively small, and it may be time just to bring in a new guy. The reserve driver, as I mentioned, I've already changed. I brought in a 19-year-old Jack Doohan, a Formula 2 guy, and I put him in my reserve slot and retained Daniel for the 3rd season, at least to see how it goes. If it starts having trouble, then I'll pull the trigger and bring somebody in. And I think I already knew who I want to bring in. Let's take a look. Let's see, Scout Drivers, and let's go to overall ratings. And if we look at 87, I got my eyes on George Russell. I think he would fit in really well, taking Daniel's slot. So right now he's willing to talk to me, but I don't want to spend the money right now. I got so much I need to do to push the car along. Remember, I'm still calling this a car problem rather than a driver problem, because no matter who I put in there, if I got a car that can't even come up to the average of the grid in every single category, it kind of doesn't matter who I bring in so much. So I got to fix the car problem first. And let's talk about that for a second. And here's the car, and here's the analysis. So again, showing we are behind in every single category. We're behind the grid average in every single performance category. So What I did to address this is I said in the prior season that I would focus on improving the car, which I did, sort of. What I did is for development, first off, development is what you do to improve this year's car. Research is what you do to improve next year's car, and those are two different paths, two different sets of projects that you have to balance during the years where you're going to put your engineering staff. So when it was in the beginning of the year, you can only do development up until the point where they nail down the rules for the following season. Maybe a month and a half or so into the season, they will nail down what the rules for the next year are. And from that point forward, you have your choice to do research or development for any given project. What I did is I went, of course, all development up until that point. And then from that point to the middle of the year, I did 1/3 research and 2/3 development, focusing mostly on this year's car, some on the following year's car. Once I hit mid-year, I went all out for next year's car. And I think that's might have what bit me at the end of the year, when Alpine was able to outperform me so badly at the end of the year, and they ended up taking the 4th place away from me. I think that had to do with the decision that I made to focus on next year's car. But having done that, I still made the board of directors objective, so I don't feel bad about that at all. And my expectation is that once the research that I did the prior year shows up in these stats, and I think that'll be part of the process of going from one season to the next. Once I see that, I'm going to see some improvement, and I hope and expect that I'm going to start seeing myself get into the top half of the grid in at least some of these categories. Because being like this, there's just no hope of doing a whole lot. At this point, we take a look at the calendar, and you see that I am at the last day of the old season. I met my board of directors goals. I focused on next year's car a lot. That would be the 2023 car. I did a lot of research. I did some development last year, but mostly I did research. I've already upgraded the staff some. I intend to do it more, and also focus more on staff improvement. Not necessarily the drivers yet, but basically get the stage set so that when I bring in a top driver, the infrastructure is going to be there to support that driver to allow him to perform to his potential. That's what I want to do. So I think that change is going to really start happening in the second season that's going to come up, and you'll see the full effect of it in the third. Maybe we'll even be a contender for the Constructors' Championship in year 3, but I would really hope to get there year 4 so that we don't come down to the last final year to do that. All right, well, let's go ahead. What I'm going to do now is to show you some of the things that happen when you transition from one year to the next. I've already told you some of the work that I'm going to do, so I really don't want to do that. I don't want to show you how I negotiate a contract. That's not hard. You guys can figure that out. And I'm not going to show you how I research parts for the car. I think that's kind of straightforward, maybe a little bit boring for you. So I'm not going to deal with that. But what I do want to do is show you what happens when the season changes, because you don't get to see that until you actually get through an entire season. So I want to show that to you. All right, so here we go. Start a new season. Okay, we see in the old one, we're seeing the last aerodynamic testing period is ending. That's where you get your points for the wind tunnel and the computer simulation. So that's going away. We have a facility upgrade. We just finished the suspension center upgrade. That's a good thing. Let's start the new season. And welcome to the new season. All right. And the first thing we have to do is to review our sponsors and figure out what, if anything, we want to do to change them. Now, unlike Motorsport Manager, we do not have fictitious sponsors that we negotiate with, and if we strike a deal with them, put their sticker on our car. These are all unnamed sponsors, kind of generic, but it's okay. So here are the various things you can do with your sponsors, some of which you come with it. You're already pre-set up. In fact, you can't even cancel it. What you can do is try to minimize it. So for example, merchandising. What merchandising is that you pay a bunch of money, and then during the course of the season, week by week, the merchandise that you created is sold, and you make something 40-50% profit on it. So in a sense, it's free money if you can afford the upfront cost, and I believe I can. I got that 45 million. I'm going to maximize this. And so I'm going to have to forfeit $18 million up front. But I'm going to get an extra $1,200 per race coming back to me. Okay? And over the course of 22 races, it's going to come out to a net gain of $9,047. So roughly, it's about a 50% profit on what I put in. Hey, if I get a guaranteed 50% profit in anything, count me in. Okay, it's a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and front that money to the max. Confirm changes. All right. And what that'll do is help me continue to have strong cash flow into the new year. Race simulator event, so I can basically let people have fun on my race simulator. It's probably really good, and nerds like us would love to do it. But it does take away from the drivers, because when little Joey is there playing with his racing game, that means Lando can't use the simulator. So, okay, this is already dialed down to the minimum. I'm going to keep it there. I don't want to do a lot of this, at least as little as I can. So for 15 weeks, we are not going to have use of the simulator, which is bad, but it is what it is. I can't get rid of this. So there were no changes, okay, so I don't have to confirm anything. Right now, I can't get rid of it. Race hospitality, this is basically renting out the hospitality center, and during that time, we do not have the bonuses. I'm going to put that down to the minimum. And memorial room event, I think, is the same thing. $100,000 for the course of the year, that's nothing. So I'm just going to dial that down to the minimum. But what I am going to do is driver appearance. Okay? This is basically sending a driver out to sponsor events. Yeah, he's going to Home Depot, he's going to Menards, he's going to wherever the sponsors are to help hawk their products. I'm only going to do that with Daniel because when a guy who is doing Home Depot appearances is not going to be able to improve his skills from working on the simulator and such during the week. So it'll cost him some experience. Since Daniel is already a slow learner because he's 33 years old, and I'd say it's extremely likely he's going to be gone at the end of the year, I think this is a good thing. And so here, instead of one weekly appearance, we're going to give him plane tickets to go all over the place and generate another $6.9 million to apply to his $10 million contract. So now he's not so expensive. He's just flying all around, and he just has to be back at the racetrack, wherever that is going to be, for the first practice session, week by week. Okay, we're going to confirm these changes. Other things like the race weekend driver appearance, we could do this in addition, we could do it with both, but this will degrade sort of the control performance rating during races. The other one has no short-term effect on the racing skills because Daniel has no long-term future with us. I'm very happy to sacrifice that, but I don't want to have any compromise to the skills in race. Likewise, I'm not ready to start renting out our factory. I have not invested in it at all other than maintenance. So given that, I don't want to give away any parts of our manufacturing. It's probably at the low end the way it is. I don't want to make that problem any worse. All right, but still, our sponsor money is up, I think, about $4 million. So that's a good thing. We're going to be getting as income per race, $4.5 million. $4.5 million per race. Extra money from sponsors, in addition to all of the regular money that we get from them for their main funding. Okay, so it's all adding up. And yes, I do want to do this. It starts going through like the new goals. Okay, so the board of directors saying, hey Paul, meet the new goal, same as the old goal, 5th place. You got 5th place last time, 5th place is your goal once again. I know in Motorsport Manager, when you're negotiating your new goal, well, it is a negotiation. You can go up, you can keep what you got, you can go up to make it harder, you can go down to make it easier, and the amount of money you get from your board of directors will vary depending on how high your goal is. Apparently here they just give it to you, probably based on what you did in the prior season. That's done. Balance. Here's the cap, 141 million. I see nothing too noteworthy here. Technical regs, there were some changes. During the season, FIA, the organizing body for Formula One, will propose rule changes, and all the teams get to vote on them. And we had a vote come through to basically, do you want poison A or poison B? We're going to, do you want to have worse airflow starting next year, or do you want to have worse something else? I voted for airflow, and most others did as well, so that's why the rule change got enacted. It was a minor technology change. What that does is it reduces the amount of research expertise you have in a given area, such as airflow, middle engine or engine cooling. Let's see, other things. Let's see, front wing. Okay, airflow sensitivity got hit pretty hard, and so on. It reduces your proficiency in these areas, and you have to build it up again by doing new research. So basically, FIA, the organizing body for Formula One, proposed changes to the technology that was being used in the cars. The members voted. They voted in the affirmative, and so then a certain amount of research expertise is going to get lost because the technology changed and you have to rebuild it up. So we can see that the impact on airflow sensitivity is going to be a minus 16.28%. I can get that back again when I do more research in the future that includes airflow sensitivity. So that is what that is about. Continue. Cost cap is the same as the prior year. And likewise, prize money is the same at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, FIA divvies up prize money to each of the teams. And of course, the number 1 team gets the most, the number 10 team gets the least, and the rest are somewhere in the middle. There was a vote in this season to make this even more lopsided, to favor the top teams even more and penalize the bottom teams even more. That did not go through. So that was fine with me. I actually voted against that, and most of the other teams did as well. So we still have the same prize money divvied up in the same way for the new season. And these are other rules that can change. One of them did. The gearbox limit, the ERS limit, and the engine limit. Every year, you start with a certain number of each of these 3 powertrain components at the start of the year. If you use them up and have to buy additional ones, you have to pay $1 million a component, so it ain't cheap. But even more than that, you take a 10-position penalty when you use those parts. So let's say if you qualified 5th, well, you're going to be 15th on the grid when you start. And this is an issue for the real Formula One teams. There's definitely strategy here. So, for example, if you're going to use one new part, you might as well buy a bunch, because you're going to get, okay, so you're going to end up in the 20th slot instead of the 18th slot. Okay, big deal. But at least you'll have decent parts that aren't going to blow up on you. These parts, as you use them race by race, they degrade, and as they degrade, there's more of a chance that they're going to blow up on you. So right now, the organization voted to increase the initial part allocation of gearboxes from 4 to 5, the electronic systems from 2 to 3, and the engine power, the engine limit, the number of engines each team gets, from 3 to 4. So that's going to help. It's still not going to keep us out of the penalty situation, most likely, but it will help. And so all the teams voted, and they said, yes, let's increase that, and so here we see it. So rules do change year by year. Sometimes they help you, sometimes it doesn't. And now we look at the powertrain. Which powertrain do you want to subscribe to? We have 4 choices: Mercedes, Red Bull powertrains, Renault, or Ferrari. Team Mclaren has been with Mercedes. It has a long history with Mercedes, actually. And they still have Mercedes power moving their cars. So what does this mean? Well, clearly it's a cost, that's fine. But what does all this mean? Because it varies with each of the 4 choices. Well, power is power. It's how powerful the engine is, how capable it is of propelling your car down the track. So we see Mercedes is actually the worst of the bunch when it comes to how powerful it is. In light of the dominance of Mercedes over the past several years, that's kind of surprising, but it is what it is. But you also see power loss threshold. So this is the percent. As the engine degrades, it goes down on a scale of percents. Okay, so you start at 100%. After the first race, maybe it's 92%, then maybe it's 80%, and so forth. The power loss threshold is the point at which the power of the engine begins to go down. So once you get below 70% of use with the Mercedes engine, its 90% power will start going down. How fast it goes down is determined by the wear resistance. The bigger this number is, the slower the engine's power will go down once it reaches the threshold. So we can see Mercedes, maybe they're not the most powerful motor, but they do have a whole lot of reliability. They retain their power longer, and they are among the best as far as hanging on to that power once they reach that threshold of where the power is going to start going down. I can tell you that this is going to happen. You're not going to be able to keep all your engines above 70%. There's no maintaining the engines. It just goes down race by race, and you will be racing engines with less than 70%. But let's say if you had a Red Bull engine, they start degrading at 85%, and they also degrade faster than any other engine once they hit that threshold. So you pay for this 100% as far as the reliability of the engine as it wears. Thermal resistance is how good a cooling system the car needs before it starts affecting engine performance. Now, exactly what this means as far as relative to what the car research tells you, I'm not sure, but I do know that having a 55% resistance with a Mercedes engine is better than a 40% resistance with a Ferrari. This is the weak part of the Ferrari. Everything else is kind of okay with a Ferrari, but with the thermal resistance of 40%, it means that really you need to make sure that you have you've done your cooling research, particularly your engine cooling research for your car components, so you have a robust capability for cooling down this engine that does not stand up well to heat. Okay, then fuel efficiency is what it is. So Mercedes actually has fairly low fuel efficiency. Renault has great fuel efficiency. That's their strong point. Ferrari, somewhere in between, quite good, but not the best. But what I do like about Ferrari is the gearbox and the energy system, the battery system that makes all Formula One cars a hybrid system. Okay, and whether you knew it or not, Formula One they have hybrid motors. Not that they ever run completely on a battery system, but it does augment the horsepower that's available to the car when they engage it. With Mercedes, we have gearbox durability 40%, ERS durability 45%. Okay, well, when I see Ferrari, that is better. So your gearboxes and your electronic systems are going to last longer with a Ferrari powertrain than they will with the Mercedes powertrain. That by itself makes me want to go ahead and at least take an interested look at Ferrari at some point once I'm sure that I have the cooling capacity to handle a Ferrari powertrain. However, for right now, last year we were Mercedes. I think these guys have been Mercedes forever. I'm going to continue to be Mercedes. So Mercedes powertrain is what we are going to opt for. And let's just say yes. All right. We have a whole bunch in our inbox. Let's see. I think anything else? Yes. All right. So the rest is just starting up the new season. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this episode. What I'm going to do the things I said, that with the drivers, with the staff, with the research capability, with spending money and then trying to rebuild it back up again so that I can have a new driver in my, I guess this would be car number 1 before the end of the year. And that it would be my strategy for the second season, hopefully getting to having an even stronger third season. But for right now, if you have stuck with me this long, I would ask you, go ahead and hit the subscriber button. It helps keep us in better contact, it makes the channel stronger, it lets me know that you like what you saw, and go ahead and hit a notification bell as well as send me a message. Let me know what you think, how I can do this better for you. I do read the messages that I receive, and I do respond to them. As far as the rest, I think I will conclude this episode here, pick it up with something else next time. So this is Paul, the Vorpal Knight, wishing you all a pleasant evening.